Welcome to the AirCon Vault. Here you can find the recordings of the live streams from AirWiggle's audio conference. These are made free thanks to our sponsors: A Sound Effect, Aftertouch Audio, Boom Library, Fmod, Game Audio Learning, Game SoundCon, Kilohertz, Rev Rooms, Soundcuts, Strata from Audio Kinetic, and AirWiggles, the online home for audio people. We hope you enjoy the video.
Welcome to Pricing Game Audio. So this is a talk about pricing game audio, about setting a price for your work, but also about negotiating, about presenting that price and presenting your price to developers and then knowing what to do when they say that you're too expensive. So this is a talk that's made mostly for freelancers, freelance music composers and sound designers especially, but the things you learn here, the principles you'll learn here can be applied to many other situations, to basically any situation in which you are discussing the value of game audio, whatever it is, in whichever shape it is, right? So yeah, my name's Aleix, Ramon. I'm a music composer and sound designer, and I've worked on a bunch of indie titles. I've been making a living as a freelance music composer and sound designer for a few years now, and it's in big part thanks to what I'm going to share to you today. And let's go. Well, yeah, sorry. First, I wanted to mention that, reiterate that this is not a talk about finding clients. This is a talk about talking with new clients. So it's not about finding clients, but it's about talking with people who are interested in working with you and making the best out of that interaction, right? So if you're interested in finding clients, which I know it's usually the number one worry for audio, for us audio freelancers, I've gathered a bunch of resources in this page below here that you see in this link, aleixramon.com/aircon. There you can find several resources, including the Freelance Survival Kit, which is a newsletter, a free newsletter that I've made covering all the non-glamorous skills you need to make a living as a freelancer in the game industry, including how to find clients, which is one of our big problems, and pricing being the second biggest problem. And so yeah, you can go to that link. And also, yesterday I was discussing with some people in AirWiggles that it would be great to start a survey to see how much each of us charges as a freelancer. And so I've launched a survey, an anonymous survey for you guys to fill in, which is also in that link that you can see on screen. That's a survey that will ask you just a few questions, all of them optional, just answer what you're comfortable answering. And it will help us to see how much others charge to make sure that we don't undercharge. Because and when we stop undercharging, we can raise what we all earn overall. We stop the race to the bottom. So having more visibility on what others charge, and again, it's anonymous, will help us make sure that we don't undercharge. So if you have a moment, you can take that survey. You can do it now, you can do it later. Doesn't matter, whenever you want. It's there in the link. So yeah, all right, let's go now for real. Right, so first thing I want to tell you guys before telling you numbers, it's that talking about money is scary. Nothing new probably for you. Nothing that you didn't know, at least. And the problem with negotiating, pricing, talking about money with developers, with our clients, is that, well, it is scary. And it is scary because we often see it as a confrontation. So we see talking about money, negotiating, talking about our prices, we see it as a confrontation, as like, if I get a good deal, it's because my client gets a bad deal, the developer gets a bad deal. If the developer gets a good deal that he's happy with, it's because I got a bad deal and I'm not happy about it. We see it as a conflict. And We all peace-loving introverts. Most of us don't like conflict, so we avoid talking about it, and we end up accepting very low rates, blah, 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 blah. So that's the main thing. But the thing is that if we can see negotiating in a different way, because negotiations at its core, it's about figuring out what the other person needs and figuring out a way to give that to them in a sustainable way, right? So we figure out what the developer needs in terms of audio, and then we figure out a way to give that to them in a way that they pay us enough to make it sustainable. And if we do it right, it's an act of empathy. And I should have turned the slide before. And if we do it right, negotiation is not just an empathy of empathy, but it leads to the double thank you. The double thank you is that moment in which the agreement is so good that both sides thank each other. Like, I'm so happy with the deal that I thank the developer, like, oh shit, love this deal, to be paid that for that amount of work, and they are happy with the deal too, like they're excited, thrilled to work with us for that price, right? That's our aim, the double thank you. So let's see how to get to the double thank you. First of all, there are 3 ways of charging, generally speaking, right? As a freelancer, you can charge with an hourly rate. For example, you can say it will cost 20 euro per hour worked. Just an example, doesn't mean it's the only true price. Can be much less, can be much more. Or you can charge per asset. You can say it will cost 200 per asset, or like, 50 euro per sound effect, or like 500 per minute of music. Or you can charge with a flat fee, which means a single fee for the whole project. And for example, like 2,000 euros for a whole project, or 10,000 euros for this project that will need like a bunch of minutes of music. These are 3 ways of pricing, of charging. We can use all of them. I know people here use all these kinds of ways of charging, but generally speaking, as game audio people, a flat fee allows us more flexibility when it comes to charging. Partly because it's a single number, it's easy for the developers to understand. They know they will pay just that amount and nothing else, with no surprises in the future. Like, they know, they feel they have more peace of mind if they know that you will charge them 2,000 for this project, or 20,000 again, whatever, than if you tell them, yeah, it's $30 per hour, and let's see how many hours they are. Like, with this second option, with an hourly rate, they don't know exactly how much they will pay. That creates a bit of insecurity. The more insecurity they have, the less willing they'll be, the less they'll trust your services, and the less willing they'll be to commit to your work, basically. So flat fee is usually better, usually best. Again, it's not the only way. I know some people prefer to use other rates. But again, this is just a small thing I wanted to mention. I want to dig deeper about how to figure out each one of these rates, and then I'll show you a different way of doing things. Because we're going to start with what I call you-based pricing, which is pricing based on what you need as a freelancer. So on your own needs, right? And then I'm going to tell you the alternative, which is client-based pricing, which I think is a better alternative in many cases, which is pricing based on what the client needs, what the developer needs, and based entirely on their situation, not on yours. Let's start with you-based pricing first, because it's the most traditional pricing. And again, there's no way that fits everything. It all depends on situations, your own preferences. This is just a way of doing things. There's no right or wrong. So to figure out the way of pricing is with you-based pricing, based on your needs, you need to figure out your desired income first, which is what you need to survive, basically, to make a living. There's a bit of numbers here. Don't be scared. This is just a couple of slides with numbers. This is not a math lesson. So the desired income is your cost of living plus an amount of savings. Your cost of living is your personal and business expenses, both. Let's say I want to earn 4,000 euros per month. If you're in America, it's, more or less $4,000, a bit less perhaps. And again, this can be anything you want, depends on where you live, depends your lifestyle, blah, blah. An amount of savings could be, generally speaking, you could say like you can save 1/3 of what you earn of your cost per month. If you can add 1/3, that could be your savings, amounts for savings for the future. Again, totally personal. This is just an example. In this case, if my cost of living is 4,000 per month, savings could be 1,200 extra. And the desired income I would aim for in this case is 5,200 euro per month. Right. So once we know that, we can calculate our rates. And to calculate the hourly rates, we take our desired income and we divide it by our billable hours. Billable hours is the amount of hours we can work per month, which is not the, admin things, networking, all of that. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the amount of time we are actually doing work for our clients. So we're sitting down in the DAW making music or sound effects or, recording Foley, whatever. Let's say if you don't know how much that is for you, you can calculate the 100 hours, could be more, could be less. And in this case, we would divide the desired income per month divided by the billable hour. In this case, we'd have 52 euro per hour. That would be our hourly rate. Now, once we have this, we can calculate the asset rate, which is our hourly rate multiplied by the estimate hours it takes to make an asset. I know, of course, that changes a lot from asset to asset. But in this, generally speaking, let's say that you have an asset that takes you 10 hours to make. Let's say that it takes you 10 hours to make 1 minute of music. If you charge 52 per hour, well, let's say 50 I put here just to simplify, and you have multiplied by the hours it takes you to make the minute of music, you get 500 euros per minute of music. And again, this changes a lot, person to person, project to project, depending on the type of music it takes. Like it will take you more or less music, blah, blah. And then once we have the asset rate, it's easy to calculate an approximate of the flat fee, which is basically multiplying the asset rate we got per the estimated number of assets. Like let's say that a project needs 20 minutes of music, we can multiply 500 euros per minute, which is our asset rate. In this case, we multiply it per 20, we get 10,000 euros. So I know, a lot of numbers. That was the boring part, the more guys. I feel like a math teacher already. And that's just you-based pricing, right? So this is all based on what you want, what you need. In this case, we haven't even checked with the developer what they need. Like this is a case in which I haven't even considered for whom am I working. This is just what do I need, just me, right? Now we're going to do the other approach, which is client-based pricing. And by the way, sorry, I forgot. Maybe guys in the chat from AirWiggles, you can put it there. There is a talk from 2023 by Nathan Moody, if I'm not wrong, which talks about pricing game audio also. He focuses on you-based pricing, like on what you want as a freelancer. If you're interested in more details about this specific method of pricing, you could check his talk, which is very nice. He goes a lot into detail about how to figure your rate. But here I want to show a different approach again, and it's client-based pricing, right? Which is pricing based on the client. So with client-based pricing, basically, in short, what we do is to charge as much as the developer is willing to pay. That's it. We don't take into account what we want to earn. We just charge as much as they're willing to pay. Because the thing is, it doesn't matter how much we want to pay. We want to get paid. One, if the developer doesn't have that amount of money, our plans, our rates, our calculations crumble to the ground. And the other thing is that the developer could have much more money than what we're asking for. So we're losing a lot of money there. So the most efficient way to make the most out of each interaction is to charge as much as the developer is willing to pay. Thanks, Lewis, for sharing the link from that talk I mentioned. Right, so how do we do that? Well, let's see. This is a graph. Here. This is a graph about how much the client. This is a graph that represents your price. Yeah, it's tongues. This is a graph that represents your price, right? On the left, we have 0. On the top right, we have like $3 quadrillion billion, which is infinite, basically. So the green part is what the client can afford. The red part is what the client cannot afford. The ideal spot is to figure out that sweet spot that you see there. That's the amount that the client can afford. And again, in some cases, they are straightforward about it. The developer tells us, hey, I have exactly this amount of money. That's it. That's cool. It's great. But as you all may know, many times, most of the times, that does not happen. And the developer will tell you, well, the client, the studio, whoever it is, will tell you, what are your rates? Hoping that your rates will be, that your price will be lower than what they actually have, so that they don't have to pay that much. That happens all the time, as you may know. So let's say that we have client that they are willing to pay up to 15,000 euro. But with your calculations that you're maybe with a U-based pricing, you calculated that based on your needs, you would need 10,000 euro. Not a bad situation because they can't afford you. However, you could earn literally 5,000 euro more here. You could literally earn 50% more if you ask the right questions, which we'll see in a moment. So the best way to do this, we'll get into more detail now, but overall, the best way to figure out what they're willing to pay, which again, sorry, in the interjection, what they're willing to pay isn't always what they can pay. You see it here, the sweet spot is what they can pay, but maybe they're not willing to pay all they have. They're not willing to give you all their budget, right? But so it's different than what they're willing to pay. But we'll see now that we can change that, we can influence that. So the best way to get paid as much as possible is to start high, offer like a high price when we offer our prices, regardless of what we need. Just start with a very high price. And then while having a conversation, there's an interaction like back and forth, and we'll see it in a moment how to do it. You adjust your price, you lower it to the point until the point that of what they're willing to pay. So you start very high and then you lower it to what they're willing to pay. You meet there. The thing is that the more they trust you, the more they will be willing to pay you. And here's where the magic happens, because if you have the first conversations about money with a client in the right way, you will increase trust. They will see you as a better professional. We'll get into that in a moment. And they will trust you more, and then they will be willing to pay you more for your work. And in this case, for example, in this imaginary case, which is not far from a real case, actually, you can see that that here, if you could increase the trust from 15,000 up to the maximum they could pay, which is 25,000. So so you start high. Sorry, guys. Here, you start high, then you lower to the amount they are willing to pay. But at the same time, the more they trust us, the more they are willing to pay. So let's see, how can we do client-based pricing? Just a second, I'm just checking the chat. Some memes here, cool. Awesome. Let's say with a real case. Let's say a wild client appears. Pokemon music in your head, composers. Let's see how we would approach client-based pricing in a real case, right? Let's say you've gone to a conference, you've met a developer there, and they tell you that they need audio, or in another case, you met a developer in a conference. A few months later, they send you an email and they'll tell you, hey, I need sound effects for my game or music. And they ask you our dreaded question, what are your rates? And we're like, nah, shit, again. The right question here would be to say, let's have a call. Because negotiation goes way better when it's in a call or in person at least, but something in which you have like immediate feedback from a person. If you start a negotiation, if you start talking about money via email, it's really, really hard to make the most out of the situation, because people get distracted. Takes them a long time to reply. It's hard to gauge to get what they're feeling only from the words. If you get into a call, everything goes much faster. You can really feel and see what they think, and you can address their objections immediately. So if you have a call, you have what we call a discovery call, and the objectives of this call are 4. Let's start with the first one. No, sorry, it's 2. The objectives of this call is to first increase how much you're willing to pay. Second, figure out how much they are willing to pay. 2 things: increase how much you're willing to pay, figure out how much they are willing to pay. And we do that with 4 steps. Now it is 4. So again, you get, this is what I'm talking about now, in case there's something new now. It's like what to talk, what to say when you start a conversation with a developer that is interested in your services, in-game audio. And then you tell them, okay, let's have a conversation. Let's have a call and let's talk about it. So you start the call by saying, well, hello, how are you doing? Can you hear me well, blah, blah. But the first thing you focus on in the call is to uncover fears and desires. What do I mean by that? By that, I mean like figuring out what they truly care about, or in other words, their motivation for doing the game and ultimately hire you. Because developers, they don't really care about game audio. They don't really care about your job, about your work. What they care about is what your work can do for them, what your assets, what your music, what your sound design can do for them, how it can help them make the game of their dreams, how it can help them make a vertical slice to find a good publisher. That's what they care about. So you need to figure that thing. Problem is that asking straightforward, hey, what are your biggest fears and desires? It's a bit weird, and it's not the best way to start a conversation. Trust me, I tried. So we can figure that out in other ways. So you can start a conversation, this topic, by asking, what can you tell me about yourself and the team? This is a great way to break the ice, to get to know them, to learn more about the project, but also to see what they care about. Because here, maybe they'll tell you a bit about their backstory, why they started their game dev studio, why they started this project, and you can start seeing what they care about. And it's a very easy question. Now, if you want to dig deeper, you can say, imagine it's 2 years from today. We've worked together and you're delighted with the progress we've made. What happened to make you happy? This is an interesting question. You can phrase it any way you want, because it makes them imagine a positive future working with you, and it makes them think, what would make me be in that state of mind if I work with that guy? And that will show you also like the things they really care about. Maybe they will tell you, well, I would be happy if you were not never late and you met all deadlines, because we worked with Freelancer before, who was a disaster. We really want to avoid that. Or, we'll be happy if you, whatever you can imagine, like if you were very quick in delivering things, because we really want to get this out as soon as possible, blah, 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 blah. It can be anything. There really can be a lot of things here. So this is a good question. You can screenshot me this maybe. And this is a very useful question to figure out what they care about. And next, lastly, to dig a bit deeper about what they truly care about, you can ask them, it sounds like you really care about blah, blah, blah. Like if they mention something, you're like, oh, wait, sounds like you really care about deadlines. Or it sounds like you really want to avoid working with someone who's not really meeting deadlines. That will help you dig deeper without asking weird and uncomfortable questions. And the thing is that when you dig deeper, we're doing this because the more they see that you understand their problems, the more they will be willing to pay you, because the more they will trust you. If you remember the slide before, the higher the trust they have in you, the more they will be willing to invest in you. So it's crucial that you uncover their motivations, fears, and desires, that you learn what they truly care about. And that's why I recommend that you do this at the beginning of the call to make sure you dig that up. This is honestly, I think this is way more important to talk about than any logistics, anything like which game engine do you use? Do you use Fmod? Do you use Wise? Blah, 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 blah. All of that can be solved in an email. But uncovering fears and desires is truly something that you should do in a conversation. Relaxed, informal conversation. Can be a call, can be in person. Chat, not so good, but still okay. But just something that flows and really dig. And that's how you will figure out what they truly care about. And more importantly, they will see that you know what they truly care about. That's when they'll be like, all right, that guy gets me. There's this magic click that will make like, okay, this is not just another freelancer. This is the guy that really understands what I need. And really, no one does this. Now, once you've taken that out of the way, which is the most crucial part, you outlined logistics. Logistics, you all know that, like things like asking, what are the game mechanics? How long is the game? How many tracks or sounds do you think it needs? What are the deadlines, etc., blah, blah. Anything you need to know. Doesn't need to be like everything absolutely, just to get an idea. Otherwise, the call would be like 4 hours long, probably. But just to get an approximate idea of the scope of the game, the technical details, requirements, just to have an idea. There's not much secret here. That's quite easy. Now, once we know the fears and desires, and we have outlined the logistics, it's always good to recap and confirm. Like say, you can use this sentence, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you need 200 sound effects by next November, so that you can finally ship this game that you've been working on for 3 years without pissing off your publisher. Is that right? This can take any shape you want, but just really like recap, confirm, summarize everything they told you, and so that you both confirm that you've understood everything. And it's mostly so that they see that you really get their situation. Again, it's a lot about that. Them seeing that you get their problems. And you can follow up with, is there anything I missed, in case there's something important that you feel like they should have told you. Right, once we've done that, we can finally offer a price. Yay. I know it's a talk about pricing, but we're talking a lot about psychology, but it's very connected. Right. So let's get into the real stuff, okay? By the way, if you guys have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A. I see that there are a few. I will address them at the end. And thank you for everyone who's already written something there. So the way to offer a price during a negotiation, there's I will tell you different ways of doing it. I will start with easy mode, I will tell you hard mode, and I'll tell you the ultra nightmare mode. These are 3 ways of giving a price. I came up with the stupid names. It's just it is something that makes us very uncomfortable, usually, at least when we are not used to it. So if you've never talked about that in a call or in person, you can start with easy mode. And once you've done that, you can try the hard mode. And if you're brave enough, you can go with the ultra nightmare mode. But each mode is, of course, harder than the other, but it helps us get better deals, as you'll see now. Let's start with the easy mode. So easy mode, to come up with the easy mode, and Shout out, by the way, to Akash Takar. I don't know if you're here. Maybe you'll see it in the future. I learned that from him. So huge thanks to you, Akash. This is an awesome technique that I learned from him. So the way to do this is first you think of a happy price. A happy price, simply put, I know that this is not scientific at all, but a happy price is simply a price that makes you happy. A price that when you think about it, is not like, I guess I could do it. But the price that makes you go like, oh shit, yeah, that would be cool. Usually a relatively high price, you know? So you think of that happy price. Again, doesn't have to be like super exact number. With U-based pricing, we had these formulas and everything to figure out things. This is just like a gut feeling. You think of that happy price, then you double the happy price to make sure that it's really high. And then you use the comfort question. The comfort question is this. You say, I would normally do this for very high price. But knowing that you're an indie developer or that you have a limited budget or, you know, the state of the industry, whatever, how much of that do you feel comfortable paying? Like, for example, like just from a recent case, like I would normally do this for 20,000 euros, but knowing that you're an indie dev and that the budget you have is limited, how much of that do you feel comfortable paying? And then they will tell you, well, basically how much you're comfortable paying. The thing is, this is a great way to offer a very high price, like as we saw in the graph before, like on the right side, a very high price that they will likely not be able to afford, but in a friendly way, we offer to put it down to adapt to their situation. This is client-based pricing. It's based on them. This works super well if you have no idea about what they can pay and what they're willing to pay. So you just say, high price, tell me how much you're comfortable doing. And since you start very high, other things happen, which what happens is that you seem very expensive, which is good because expensive things are better, generally speaking. So it gives also an impression of professionalism. So you start here, they're like, oh shit, that guy is expensive, must be good. And then, but at the same time, you're generous. So because you're willing to lower it to meet them. So if their answer is above your initial happy price, remember you have the happy price, then you double it. If their answer is somewhere here above your initial happy price, it's great. They'll pay you a price that you're happy with it to celebrate. If their answer is below your happy price or below your the price that you really liked, you can do several things. First thing you can do is to split the difference. Be like, okay, just let's meet in the middle, you know, because maybe even if it's not that comfortable for them, maybe they will be willing to do a bit of an effort to meet you. It's just a very simple, like, okay, split the difference. Just let's meet in the middle. It's also quite empathetic. Like, it's not like, no, you have to pay me my price. It's like, okay, can you push it a little bit? If they cannot do that, you can also offer to pay in installments. Like, okay, you cannot meet me here in the middle, but would you be more comfortable paying in installments, like in 5 different smaller, you know, payments, or even 10? Many indie developers, especially I've seen it with people who don't work full time in the industry. Maybe they're making a game with savings they have, or from their day job, a day job that pays them well. They really like to pay in installments, like every month, because they keep getting paid by their day job. So paying in installments is much more comfortable. If they don't want to pay that price, even with installments, yeah, you can accept their price with incentives. Like, for example, okay, I accept your price, but what about 5%? I get 5% of the profits of the game. And if they also don't accept that, you can just simply accept their price. It's fine, totally fine. As long as it's not totally fine. Like, it depends on the price they tell you, of course. But in many cases, it could be fine. Even if it's not your happy price, maybe it's like, okay, still okay, you know? So again, let me recap because it's a few steps. You say, I would normally do this for this very high price, but knowing this, that you're an indie dev, the budget is limited, how much of that you feel comfortable paying. If they accept, it's great. If not, you can say, okay, let's split the difference. What about if we meet in the middle? If they don't like, if they say, no, that's too much, I can't, you can, okay, what if we pay in, you pay in installments? If still too much, you can be like, okay, what if I accept your price, but then I get a percentage of profits? If that doesn't work, you can accept the price without incentives. Again, do what you're comfortable with. You don't have to push, like, these are like 4 kind of levels of pushing. You don't have to push so much if you don't feel comfortable. Just take it easy. And above all, make sure that you know your minimum price beforehand. Like, you know, what's the minimum that you would be willing to pay for that project, right? Now, let's go for hard mode. And by the way, if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask in the chat. I'll answer later. I know it's a lot of information now. Let's go for hard mode. So, in hard mode, what you do, well, before hard mode, sorry, let me just clarify one thing. If the easy mode, which I know I can still be uncomfortable, but if the easy mode feels too overwhelming for you, you can also do offer the price in an email or message after the call. Like, you figure out everything they need during the call, like dig into their fears and motivations, figure out the logistics. Then you can, if you don't feel comfortable enough, you can say, okay, let's end the talk, and in a few hours I'll send you a price, a budget proposal. I'll propose you a price via email or chat. And you do basically the same thing. Like, you send him an email saying, I would normally do this for this price. Tell me how much you'd be comfortable paying. If it's with a text conversation, it's a bit harder to negotiate, as I mentioned before, but at least in that case, you have already figured out their true motivations, and you've talked with them in person. So yeah, let's go for hard mode. In hard mode, you also think of a happy price for that project, a price that satisfies you. And then you use 3-tiered pricing. And here's where things get a bit interesting, like more interesting. This one I really recommend, like, doing it after the talk, like telling them, hey, I'll send you 3 possible prices after this call, after the call, and then you can choose whichever you want, and we can talk more about it. Because this takes a bit more of thinking. In hard mode, we use 3-tiered pricing, which is offering them 3 different prices. Option A is the super fancy, amazing option, which is the ideal option. It's like an option like, in a world where budget is infinite, I would charge this and I would do this for you. Let's say that we talk with this client and we offer them in option A 30 long traps, adaptive music. They have exclusive rights for the music. You keep the OSC album profits. We record with a live orchestra. We make making of videos for marketing. It's the dream, anything you want. And that would have a really high price. Like, we don't expect them to accept this. I'll explain in a moment. Then option B is more normal. It's more like a normal-ish, what they would probably, a more normal approach. 20 medium length tracks, adaptive music, exclusive rights. You keep, the composer keeps the OSC album profits with some live musicians for 30,000 only. And option C would be like the light option, the smaller economic option, with only 5 short tracks, no adaptive music, non-exclusive rights. Composer also keeps the OSC album profits, and with no live musicians at all, for just 15,000. So what's happening here, we offer a wild range of prices here. Like, from option A is literally 10 times bigger, more expensive than option C. What we're doing here is that in option A is expensive, really, really expensive. And what it does is, first, it serves as a way of kind of brainstorming what's the ideal thing we could do to make them seem that you could really do a lot of things. And also, it makes everything else, every other option, look cheap in comparison. That's why we start with option A in the left. So they read that first, and they're like, oh shit, that's so expensive. But then they see the others and like, oh well, in comparison, the deals are fine. The option B is rather expensive, but has a good value. And option C is cheap. It's like not enough for what they need. Like in this case, let's say that the developer was looking for, more or less 20 tracks. And so you offer them the very cheap option. Just like if you really have very little, like a very small budget, you could go for this one, but just it's probably not enough for you. But it's options. You don't force them to choose this. And to calculate the value of each tier, the middle value, the middle tier can be your happy price, the price we thought about, like just a price that feels good to you. The expensive tier, the option A, should be something extremely high. Like they are not going to choose it. It's very rare that they choose it. So it's just something very expensive to make everything else look cheaper. You can take your happy price and multiply it by 5, and it's totally fine. Just offer a lot of things, doesn't matter, make a price super high. And then option, the latest option, option C, the cheap one, sorry, should be at half of your happy price. So that it's cheaper, yes, but in comparison, option B is a much higher value for your money. That's, yeah, as Steven just said, nah, exactly. Option A is too expensive. Option B is just right. Option C is too cheap, exactly. But the magic of this is that we give the developers these 3 options, and this helps very well when we don't know how much they're willing to pay, because you might be surprised. Maybe they will choose option A, or maybe you think now they'll probably choose option C and they will actually choose option B. It happened to me a lot of times that a developer actually wanted something between option A and B, and they were willing to pay something in the middle. They told me, hey, actually, I like the making of videos, but we don't have enough money. So, could you do something in between A and B? And then I tell them, hey, what about blah, blah, 60,000 or 50 or whatever. Just making up numbers now. But you can come up with something in between. This is not solid. It's not set in stone. It's just like a brainstorming. Like, what do you think about these prices? Let me know. Yeah, and if they choose option A, really just throw a party and invite me, because that's damn awesome. Now, yeah, before continuing, one thing I forgot to mention, as you can imagine, this works especially well. I mean, this is made to use with flat fees, because this doesn't make that much sense with an hourly rate, right? You cannot, I mean, you could maybe offer like 3 different hourly rates, but it doesn't make that much sense. All of this technique works very well with flat fees, just a number that's easy to discuss, and in each price I will offer you different things. All right, let's go for, should we go for Ultranimer mode? Let's go. Ultranimer mode. I think I've never explained this one in a live in a conference yet, because I always run out of time. I think we're still okay in time. Ultranimer mode is, you also offer a range of prices, like in hard mode, like 3 different options. My bad, sorry, let me start. You offer a range of prices, and I'll show you how now. And then you improvise a 3-tiered pricing, like 3-tiered pricing based on their reactions. You'll see in a moment. You say, I can do, after discussing their motivations, logistics, everything, you tell them, I can do this for a price between very high price, like this astronomically high price, and your happy price. How does that range sound to you? That's something that you did live in person, not this is, you don't stop it and then you write them this. No, this is the thing that you do in the call during the conversation to see their reaction, to see how their world shatters, like, holy shit, 150, what? And to see their reaction and see how they react, basically. So you can see the similarity with the comfort question I mentioned before, in which I said I could do it for this amount, but let me know how much you'd be comfortable paying. That's the easy way. This way is like, I can do it for something between this and this, between 100,000 and 30,000. Does that range sound good to you? It's a massive range. So it's likely that they're fine with somewhere in between. Yeah, let's say it's a price between 150,000 and 30,000. All right, what if they say, I was thinking of 25,000, like less than your range? Totally fine. I do the same. I offer them three tires. Again, in this case, I recommend doing this live in person. Sorry, live, I mean in a call or in person. If you're in person, you just write it down in front of them. If you're in a call, what I do is I share the screen, I open Notion, and I really create a table in front of them and just wing it. I improvise it. I mean, when you've done this several times, it gets easy and you can have an idea beforehand of how you'll do it, but just write it in front of them. That's why it's called ultra mode, by the way, because it's really hard to do this one. So yeah, you offer them like these three tier, like three different prices. But as you can see here, option A is again astronomically high number. But then let's look at option C. Option C is the lowest amount they accepted, right? So if they tell you, you say, okay, I can do it from something between 150 and 30,000. And if they'll tell you, no, I can do 25,000 maximum, that's the lower tier. If they tell you, I can do 10,000 or 5,000 or 3,000 maximum, that's your lower tier. So that you know that the prices you're offering here, even if it's not as much as they could get, they can always afford it. So you don't risk, losing the client because maybe they're like, the prices are too high, blah, blah. No. With this, there's always an option they can afford, even if, as we'll see now, maybe what you offer in that option is very low, like very not a lot of work. So again, as you can see, the lowest amount is the lowest tier. And then the middle tier, you can choose, you can make it be like the lowest amount they accepted multiplied per 2, like double, basically. In this case, would be 50,000. And then you offer, ideally more than double of what option C has, so that the option in the middle feels like a better value for their money. What will likely happen here is that they want something in between option B and C. And what you're making here is that you're making them think like, okay, this is your minimum. Let's take that and let's think about, pushing it a bit higher in a very subtle way. Like, okay, that's the very minimum. Let's think about if we can push it a bit higher and see how much you'll be willing to pay. So yeah, lowest amount, the accepted is the option C, and then they probably want something between option B and C. Again, if it sounds confusing, well, it's something that at first it's a bit hard to see, but if you do the other, it's hard to really pull off. But if you do first the other methods, if you do the easy mode, then the hard mode, you will see how this mode also comes more naturally. It's not so hard to pull off. And again, I'll answer the questions in a moment. But above all, these methods allow us to be very generous because we start with very high prices, as you've seen. We offer wide range of prices, and we're always willing to adapt to the situation by offering these high prices and then being like, okay, but I can adapt to you and I can let you choose what you want. We're being generous. We're not pushing them too much. We are adapting to their situation, which is the magic of client-based pricing, that it can allow us to be expensive and get well paid while also being generous and empathetic with them. So as we've seen, yeah, just a second. I missed one slide, which is the recap. Let me recap just now. We've seen you-based pricing, which is pricing based on what you need. And again, Nathan Moody has a great talk on that if you really want to dig deeper on that, which is basically figuring out your desired income and coming up with formulas, like using formulas to figure out your rates. But again, I think it's usually better to use the client-based pricing, which is focused on what the client needs, and it can change wildly from client to client. If you use that, what happens is that you get paid as much as possible for each client, which is the ideal in pricing, really, because again, it doesn't matter how many mathematical things you come up with. If the client cannot pay you, they just can't pay you. And even if you use these mathematical things, sometimes the client is willing to pay you much more, and they have much more than you would expect. And then you're just losing on that. You're leaving that on the table. Yeah, and as a side effect, it allows us to be generous because we adapt to them, right? So yeah, let's go for questions. Also, I wanted to mention again that there is the survey, which we just started. There's a survey for freelancers. That's here in the link that you can see on the screen, aleixramon.com/aircon. Here you'll find three things. You'll see like one of them is a survey that we just started to gather information about how much we are charging for our work. And I think it will help us, and especially people who are starting, it will help us not undercharge. And when we all charge more, we raise the perceived value of audio. Like when we avoid the race to the bottom and we all know like, okay, wait, that guy is charging that much and that much and that much, and I should charge more. And then when everyone starts charging more, like developers also see like, oh, wait, audio actually, it's not maybe as cheap as we avoid normalizing audio being cheap, which is a big problem. And when people accept that it's normal to pay a good proper price for audio, it becomes easier for everyone, for all of us, to get paid better. We find less resistance. So really what I'm trying to say is that the more people feel the survey, and feel free to share it with everyone you want, the more people feel it, and the more we'll be able to choose our prices in the right way. And the more we do that, the more we'll be able to overall raise the price of audio and get paid better overall. And you can also see, I also mentioned there's this newsletter I have, is this an email course about how to find clients and how to freelance in general that many people are finding useful. It's completely free. I also put it in there. And I also there's an email list for a wait list, because I'll probably make more content about pricing. So if you're interested, you can join there and I'll let you know when something comes out. So let's go for the questions. Okay, guys, there's a few. Cool. Love this. Just let me read them. Cool. I think I'll do all of them. Yeah, we still have time. Right. So Vlad, my question is, my friend have cartoon project. He's going to ask for sponsors money and ask me how much. Let me just spotlight it. Here. My friend has cartoon project. He's going to ask for sponsors money, and ask me how much would I charge for making sounds. 1, if no sponsor money. Oh, sorry. First time I use this system. 1, if no sponsor money, and 2, sponsors pays for it, company. Right. Yeah, I've been in this situation before, Vlad. This is a bit similar to 3-tier pricing, I think, in that you can offer them different prices. And in this case, I would ask them, since they're openly talking about the sponsor's money, which I guess is a publisher's money, or maybe some other kind of sponsor, I would ask them, like, if since you're talking about that already, like, hey, how much is that amount? And then come up with different prices, like really like, okay, this is what I could do. This is a price if you have the sponsor money, and this is a price if you don't have sponsor money. And I would really like offer different things for each price. I think it's totally fine. You can tell them I'll make, more detailed sound effects if you have the sponsor money, or I'll make videos about how I do it, or more varied music with live musicians, blah blah. And if they don't have the sponsor money, just a more simple version. I think that would be the best. And again, I would try to see if they are open to tell you the exact price, because since you're already talking about it, that could be good. And people in the chat also feel free to give him advice. I'm like totally open to that, of course. Let's see. Right. Sean, my question is how any of these principles change without the creatives who don't have a wide wealth of real-world credits. Maybe we have student portfolios, rescores, and sound design redesigns. Meaning, how much do you think this impacts clients' willingness to pay those with valuable experiences and skills, but without many credits? Fire rate. Great question. So in an ideal world, this talk would be like 5 hours long. I would tell you many more things. You see, actually, let me see. This is about trust. I mentioned before here, do you see this in this slide? I said that trust can push and elevate how much a client is willing to pay for your work. This is basically the same thing you're telling me here, like credits, real world credits are a way to generate trust. So it's one of the best ways to generate trust. So how do we create trust? This is something I touch more in depth in the freelance survival kit course I mentioned that I have in the links with the page I share with the resources. This is the free email course I mentioned. There I talk a lot about trust. Trust is how much a client thinks that you are capable of delivering what they need. And to increase this trust, first, as I share already in this conversation, we figure out what they need. Because if you don't know, if someone doesn't know, if I don't know what they need, my client is not going to think I'm going to give them what they need, because they see, this guy doesn't really get me. The more they see that I get them, I understand them, the more they see I can give them what they need. That's the main thing. But also, there's the issue with credits, like experience, right? The more experience you have, the more you show that you're a person who delivers, a person that will not disappear, a person that doesn't disappoint. So that also generates trust, because it makes them see like, okay, he's working this and this and this and this and this. That makes this guy like, I can trust probably this guy because he has so many credits and experience. So that's plays a big role. There's also other things, again, mentioned in that newsletter. There's things like the way you behave, for example, the way you talk, your social media or your website, your online presence, like your website. Is it messy? Does it look professional? If your website is messy, maybe that means that you're also messy. And if a website is professional, it looks great, that means that, okay, that guy knows what he's doing. It's a lot of little things. Thanks for the question. A great one. Hello, Anonymous. Is it good practice to slightly lower your rate if you find artistic or technical value in the project, but they don't have the budget? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can actually. This is actually one of the biggest, a great takeaway I had from the talk from Nathan Moody I mentioned before. He mentions, and I agree totally, that in some cases it's okay to lower the price if there's something that you get from that project. Maybe it helps you work with people that you want to be more connected with, to build a relationship for the future. Maybe you just really like what they're doing or what the game represents. or maybe you really like the people, so you're like, okay, whatever, I'll work with you. And the opposite too, if you really don't like the game and you don't like the people you're working with, it makes sense to actually charge more, because if I'm going to put up with all that stuff, I really want to be paid much more. So yeah, definitely, it is a good practice or not. It's okay. You can do it. It's fine. And related to that, I think for people who are starting, at least, I think it's okay if at first you work for free in some things. I think it's fine. We shouldn't devalue audio, our work, but it's understandable. Like if you're starting, you have no credits, it's hard to create trust, as we mentioned before. It's okay to work for free in some projects. Of course, you should get paid if you can, but let's say that no one gets paid at all in a project and they have zero budget and it's like the only thing you found. It's totally fine. Don't worry about that. More. Let me check the chat just for a second too. Oh yeah, Chris in the chat mentioned, "Whoa, Aleix, your book is free. That's crazy nice." Yeah, it's a book I wrote like 8 years ago on my website. There's in the menu you can see there's a section called book, in which there's a nomadic home studio, which is a book I wrote like almost 10 years ago when I was traveling around Europe, hitchhiking, couch surfing while making game audio work. And then I wrote this short book about it, about how to do it. You can get it for free. I was used to sell it before, but now I sell it for free because I think it's outdated now, and I don't want to charge people for outdated information, obviously. So it's totally free now if you want to get it. Let's see. Q&A, back to it. Lourdes, how do you come up with a happy price considering the scope of the project? Like talking to an established studio or a solo dev? Yeah, that's like it's not a scientific thing. So it's like you really have to sorry, it's just a gut feeling. Just basically happy price is like a price that you'd be satisfied with the game. It's hard to tell. Like if maybe you can have an idea like, okay, if this is a solo dev, it's probably likely that they will accept a lower price, or if it's an established big studio, probably likely that they will accept a higher price. But generally speaking, it's a price that makes you happy with that you're happy being paid. So let me be more specific, because I was scrolling, I wasn't thinking that clearly on your question. Yeah, it's just the easy mode. It's just the way to get to a price that you're happy with. That's what matters with this mode. So a price that you're satisfied with. And that's why I say that you should double your happy price, so that when you're so high, it's likely that you're so high and then adapt to the situation. It's likely that you'll find the amount they're willing to pay, even if that amount is quite high, because you started so high that you'll find it somewhere. So don't worry too much about it. Just, of course, a solo dev will likely pay less than a huge studio, obviously, but just go for this very high price and then adapt to the situation. And then when you do that, they have a bigger studio, they will be more comfortable paying more, and the solo dev will be comfortable paying less. That wasn't a very straightforward answer, I know, but there it is. I wanted to share, guys, the form. Let me share it in the chat. Just a second. There we go. Here's the form. And then for the new people too, there's a form that will help us figure out how much we charge. It's anonymous, completely anonymous. It's a survey, sorry. And there also, in this other link is all the other things I mentioned, all the other resources. Right, back to the questions. How much my price should vary when developers want me to implement the sound in their projects and not only create assets and tracks, using engines built in audio systems or middleware, etc.? Great question. That's something I usually, just here in the 3-tier pricing, something I usually discuss with them. First of all, I discuss if they are interested in it, because if they're not interested in you implementing audio, you don't even have to think about it. But then in the price, if I offer the 3-tier pricing, I usually put it either in option A or option B, the implementation, and then option C never has it, so that the price of my work is higher with implementation. It's one of the things that you can use to justify higher prices, basically. And how much your price should vary, that's, I think that depends on you. It depends how much, on the game, how easy is implementation, how much work is it for you, how much you like it, perhaps, that's very project dependent. Right. Efkan Erdogan. Thanks for sharing the wisdom. Super helpful. Happy to help. Glad it's useful. My questions. If we have a team of freelance contractors that we share the workload with and acting as a supervisor for the overall project, is there a rule of thumb for a fair percentage of share to pay to them? Damn. I don't know. There is another rule of thumb, I think. Anyone in the chat can help me with this? I don't know, actually. Yeah, sorry, I don't know this one. Right, Christian. Hey, Christian. So if not sharing exclusive rights, those are distribution rights of use. When you have the soundtrack done, are you adding the company as publisher so the PRO doesn't charge them for OST use? How you negotiate that part? Thank you so much. Like anything, all these little details I would negotiate. Well, first of all, I will negotiate it if they care about it. If they really care about it, you can use that as a way to influence the price. Like if it's something that they really want to have the control of the rights, you can add them in option option A or option B, because that's something they want. They will be willing to pay more for that. Like, okay, if you want it, then you have to pay for it. If they don't care at all about that, you don't even have to mention it, because if they don't really care about that, then you can just say, okay, but then I keep the right for this, that, right? And it's fine if they don't really care about it. And yeah, I don't want to give a lot of advice about legal things, honestly, because it's I don't want to publicly share advice about legal things because I'm not a lawyer, and it's a talk about pricing. Of course, it's related, but I don't want to give the wrong advice. And I know that sometimes these things are country dependent, so I don't want to really. I don't have like a straightforward answer for you. Just keep in mind that if it's something they value, you can charge more for it. And if they don't value, then they'll probably be fine with you keeping all of that, and you don't have to charge them more for it or anything. You don't have to consider it in your pricing. What if Exxon, sorry for butchering the name, Exxon Tavesh, what if in the hard mode they come up with an option D with their own terms and pricing? How do we respond with that? That's great. That's literally happened to me 2 weeks ago. And they called it option D, literally. Totally fine. Like, it's actually one of the things it's good to encourage in this, when you have these conversations, like, these are the pricings. If this doesn't fit you, we can come up with something in between, something in between B and C or A and B that we can call option D, or however. It's great if they do that, because that means they are showing you precisely what they really care about. And then you can play with the price. If option D is not so good, you can be like, okay, let's push it a bit more, do it like in between B and D, blah, blah. You can just play with the prices you've already given, with expectations you've already set. You can just play with that an option there. Anonymous, how do you go about if the client asks for project's fee? Sorry, guys, I'm actually replying to the newest ones. Let me reply to the oldest ones first. How do you go about if the client asks for project file? Sorry, do you ask an extra fee or do you include it in the happy price? That never happened to me. If, again, same as I'm saying it to everyone, if they really value it, if you know they value it, you can charge a bit more for it. Yeah, basically that. But I don't have like a rule of thumb, like it should be 10% more if they ask for the files or not. Not really. Let me set this. Like, right, Vincent. Which one is the best way to charge if you are needed to always be on standby and for audio middleware implementation and maintenance? Good question. In this case, I would actually use perhaps like a flat fee for the project at first, like specify that the flat fee is for creating the assets, if that's part of the work. And then if it's something that's recurrent that you don't know how much it's going to be, it's better to do an hourly rate. Like if it's something you have no idea for how long it's going to be, you don't want to log yourself in a flat fee because maybe they pay well at the moment, but then maybe it takes forever to finish. So I would say in this case, if you have to be on standby, I would charge per hourly rate or maybe even monthly retainer if they are interested in that. You could offer them both options, like, hey, here's that would be my price as monthly retainer, and that's my price as an hourly rate. You can even place, if you show them two prices, you think they'll get the hourly rate, you can even use the monthly retainer, say the super high price, to be like, wow, look at that. Like having me there, it's so expensive, but the hourly rate is so cheap in comparison. It's a no-brainer, you know? Nico, in client-based pricing, would you still set your livable minimum as the lower border? Or would you go below that and try to compensate through our clients? Yeah, good questions. Yeah, well, depends on you. It's personal. I would personally set it as my livable minimum, like, yeah, definitely, like have like an amount that's the minimum you need to live, and then like sorry, let me start again. I have a price that's my minimum for this. I'm not going to do less to do it. Depends on project to project. As I mentioned before, it's also like depending on how much I like the project, the people involved, if it will give me future projects in the future. There's a minimum there, and you can come up with it in different ways. You can use the U-based pricing to come up with how much you need per month, and then use that as a minimum thing that you're going to go below that. But of course, if you don't have any other clients, in reality, that sucks, and it's like maybe you want to accept it even if you have nothing else. And in real life, you're in a better situation if you have enough clients that you can choose, and then you can be more picky and have higher, lower price standard. But of course, I understand that in many cases, people don't have anything else, and maybe you're willing to take it. It's personal, up to you. So that's why it changes from situation to situation all the time. Right. Do we have time still? A bit more. I will try to go a bit faster. Oh, wait, Ben said something in the chat. In terms of working for free, Nathan Moody gave a similar talk last year. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was mentioned. He said it's kind of like the opposite of risk factor. For instance, if it aligns with what you need, you can discount it by the percentage it aligns with what you need, what you want/need. And if you have never worked before, then you need to demonstrate your skills so that you could be 100% alignment, right? Love that concept. Yeah. There's a comment in the chat from Ben if you guys want to hear more about working for free. But again, as many of these things is situational dependent. Back to Q&A. Os, as we all know, at the beginning, Many starters do work for free to gain experience, to put something in their portfolio. At what point should a beginner stop doing free work? Right, again, the free work thing. Yeah, that's a good question. I think as soon as you can, man. Like, there's this rule of thumb, like if no one in the project gets paid, it's okay to do it for free. If someone, even if just one person in the project gets paid, then you should get paid. Even if it's just a bit, even if it's just like a percentage of profits, something. And also, even if you work for free, you can also make the most out of it, asking them like, I'll ask you for 5 referrals to other people. I want you to write a nice review of you on Reddit. I would like to, a review for my website. Just tell other people about me. Share it on social media that I did this. Just actively ask. You can ask that as payment, even if they don't pay, even if no one gets paid and you don't get paid neither. I'm Eric. Do you think that the clients might reject you directly if your first offer is too high and disconnected from their reality? So they will turn to competitors and designers and choose someone else because the offer of work is high? I understand, of course, that conversation is a key point. Thanks for your precious knowledge. Happy to help. Yeah, that's the biggest. That's one of the biggest fears people have when using this the client-based pricing. Like, what if I start too high? And people get afraid. That's why it's so important to really have a conversation. Because if you do it in email, it's way easier that they just read your email. They're like, screw that. I'm not even replying, or they forget about it, or they'll reply 2 weeks later when they already have a composer, sound designer. That's why it's so important to have a conversation in person, so that immediately you can see, you can know if it's too high for them or not, and address that immediately. If you're not sure about it, I understand, it's fine. You can just start, with your happy price. You could just try to be happy with something that's not too crazy. Then when you see that it works so well, next time you can make it much higher if you don't feel safe doing this. And at the same time, you'll probably start seeing that, especially when you have conversations with people, you can start kind of seeing how much they're if they're in a good situation financially or not, if they have a publisher or not, which makes a huge difference. So you know more or less if you can what will scare them. But again, if it's a conversation, it's unlikely that they will disappear. And sometimes, if they disappear anyway, like sometimes people disappear, like they are not really that committed to getting out there yet. Sometimes people are just, checking prices and then maybe not even hiring anyone. They just want to compare prices. So it's not always your fault that they disappear. Vincent, how do you calculate in project scope, timeline, and asset requirements into your calculation? If so, how would you do it, and what is your strategy for getting as much information as you can about the potential project? So Vincent, we mentioned that before, like all this discovery call process of figuring out what they care about, but also the logistics, like things about the project in general. I think that covers your question. And yeah, basically we covered it before. Maybe you haven't seen it, but basically you cover that in a conversation with them. If you watch the replay of the call, you will see that I explain it there. Let's see. How would you handle or acquire a client who uses a tactic? Someone offer me cheaper rates, or someone can do this with this. Yeah, it doesn't happen as much as we usually fear, actually. But again, if we use all these comfort questions and we're open to adapting our prices, be it with easy mode, hard mode, ultra nightmare mode, this, how much you'd be comfortable paying. We offer 3 prices and you're open to a conversation. Maybe these other people influence what's okay and what's not for them, but we are figuring that out, so we can adapt to that. So if we do all of this, it's unlikely that they'll be like, yeah, but someone offered me this, so I don't want to pay the price that we came up with now. So since it's a conversation, even if they have that in their mind, you will figure out the price that they're happy with. Right. Another one. Merrick, do you have an usual average rate for a sound design asset, a music segment, audio implementation per hour? No, there is no usual average rate. That's one of the things I would like to explain if I had 5 hours to do this talk. There is, generally speaking, there is not an industry rate. Industry rate means like a price. That's like the standard. Like in many things in life, there's like, I don't know, a kilo of potatoes in this region of the world always costs whatever, $3, $2. If it's $2.50, it's expensive. If it's 1.5, it's cheap because the normal rate is $2. That's an industry standard. That does not happen with game audio in general because there's so many variables. Like there is so many kinds of way, like music can be made in so many different ways. It can be depending on style of music, can cost more or less to do. Games can be more or less complex, like deadlines, the experience of a composer or sound designers, it changes a lot how much they can justify for their prices. So there is not an usual average rate, generally speaking. In some specific things there are, but generally speaking, they are not. And that's one of the reasons also saying that I also want to that's why I'm doing the survey I mentioned before about rates, because that will help us see how rates really vary a lot from person to person. Maybe will give us like some vague approximate, which is also helpful. Maybe that will help with your questions actually. But yeah, generally speaking, there's not like a specific fixed rate for most things in game audio. Chris, is it a good idea to factor in extra costs into your price? Unity seed, Wise, RF mod license seeds? I would discuss it. I think that's from case to case, and probably they would cover it. Like make sense that they cover it, but I would discuss it with them. And if they cover it, include it in the price. If they don't cover it, you have to make your price a bit higher to cover for this. Basically, depends on case to case. Just talk with them, see what they prefer. Vincent, is it best to limit the amount of revision that the client can ask and charge extra percentage from the original price if the revision count exceeds the limits? And how would you write contract deals that safeguard you from being overworked and being exploited? Yeah, that's a viable thing. Like I usually haven't had, in my experience, like I haven't had problems with the revisions. Never went to more than 3. I usually say I include unlimited revisions, but sometimes my gut tells me, "Wait, this client could be a bit micromanaging." Then I'm like, "Wait, okay, up to 3 revisions or 2," and then you can do I don't do it, but you can definitely do it. Like you can charge an extra price for extra revisions. That's totally fine. Yeah, I don't have like a number to tell you specifically for that, but you can definitely charge. Again, just discuss it with them during the call, see what they're willing to pay, because that depends a lot of how much micromanaging they are doing. And about contract deals that safeguard you from being overworked and being exploited. I'm not sharing legal information here because I'm not a lawyer. I don't want you to give you like the wrong answers, wrong information. So I think that's another call. There's probably calls about that in AirWiggles. I'm pretty sure. Tom's. What about the agreement paperwork? I have heard of people. I have heard people doing the work, but at the end not receiving the. Oh wait, sorry, guys, I didn't see that. We're out of time, I think. Yeah, Greg and Lewis, let me know if you're out of time. I'll keep talking meanwhile. because I really like these people here that have joined us here. So what about the agreement paperwork? Adam, it's the same question. I have heard people doing the work, but at the end of receiving the remuneration. How do you deal with this from a beginner standpoint? Do you ask for upfront partial payment, or what's the approach? Yeah, that's another talk. And yeah, regarding upfront payment, I always ask for 50% first, 50% later. I mentioned before that you can do one of the ways you can negotiate is offering them like more installments. Like once I did like, I think like several payments of like 15%. And so we started with 15, then every month was a 15%. You can do that. It's normal to get paid a bit at first. I think 50% at first is the usual, but if it's a bigger project, longer project, or they don't have a lot of budget yet, you can ask for a lower payment. Again, talk it with them, see what they're comfortable doing. Yeah, thank you guys. Let's see how many more questions I can do. I feel like I get carried away with each single question. I just get carried away. And by the way, you can just contact me anywhere here you see on screen, just Discord or LinkedIn. I'm using LinkedIn a lot, sharing a lot of tips. That's a good place to find me nowadays, actually. But I'm also on Instagram. I'm not a lot in Twitter/X lately, sorry. But you can find me everywhere else. Oh, we're out of time. Right. Yeah, I'll be in the Hangout space for a bit later. So thank you, Greg, for letting me know. And yeah, guys, it's been awesome being here. Really fun. I had a lot of fun, even more than I expected. And yeah, again, you can see all of that stuff, all of the resources I shared in that link. I hope all of that is useful. And if you can fill that survey I mentioned, will be great. I love it. I think we're helping the whole community. And I'll see you in Air Wiggles and other places, hopefully. Bye, guys.